rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Monday, January 6th meeting of the Board of Aldermen. Our first order of business is additions and deletions to the agenda. The city attorney could not be here, so she asked me to remove the executive session on current litigation and the year in review for the legal department. Can I get a motion to remove those?
Second.
Any discussion or debate? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Any additional additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment, where members of the public are invited to address the board on matters not on our agenda. First, we have Arwen Turner from Come Alive Outside. Welcome.
Hi. You want to join me? Sure. Yeah, it's us again. I am here to talk a little bit about Winterfest. We have some updates. And my apologies that I am now coming here in January. We have been waiting for a press release to come out from the governor since October, about the T-term grant. So it came out either last week or the week before, and we were one of the few communities who received a T-term grant from the Department of Tourism for the state. So we have $80,000 that will be going into marketing for Winterfest. And our plan is to bring 10,000 people to this town and to hopefully bring $750,000 to our community in 9 days. And it's all backed by science. We're not just making up numbers. So we're really excited. This year it will kick off on February 14th, and it will run until February 22nd. We have figured out some of the climate problems from the past. So Killington will be helping us with a snow machine. So Center Street sledding shouldn't be a canceled event unless it's one of these weird 50-degree February dates. We have other things returning that have been exciting in the past, like the snowshoeing at the country club, the Great Bigfoot Chase is coming back, Human Foosball is coming back, and then Russ, do you mind talking a little bit about what we're doing with the snow carving competition? Because that's pretty exciting.
So we've been doing snow sculpting for quite a while. We started it back with Meg Barrows a number of years ago when she was at the Chaffee. And in that sense, gone on to be a good community event, a lot of support from a lot of different organizations. A couple of years ago, we had a gentleman from over in Woodstock who is a national competitor. So he has invited, I think 16 professional snow sculptors that are all going to compete for the New England regionals. So the winner of this event will go on to Lake Geneva, which happens actually in January, so they'll be going in 2026. So we're trying to raise the game a little bit, get some folks in from, I think we have folks coming from Massachusetts, New Jersey. So trying to promote Winterfest like Aaron was doing this winter in Boston at one of the expos. So we've been spending some time out and about in other communities and other states promoting the event. So it will be, it should be very good this year, so I'm excited.
Yeah, a large of our marketing reach is focused on people who are from out of state but have second houses in Killington and Ludlow area. And so that's something that we realized in our research about this, that's a pretty large number, but those folks typically stick to their ski resorts instead of coming down here. And it's not because they don't want to come here, it's because they didn't know Winterfest exists. So we're just really excited about that and really just want to come and talk to you all about it. So if you see all of these ads and things on the news, on your YouTubes, on your Spotify, on your social, everywhere that you're going to see, that's what's happening. Local businesses are encouraged to have special deals and different opportunities. We have a brand new Winterfest website. We've completely redone the brand, and all of these things will last for years, so it's not just a one-time thing.
And to speak to the snow guns, I think they come next week, so we'll actually have them well in advance. So it looks like we have some really cold temperatures forecasted, so we may actually start blowing snow next week for February. So my goal is that we'll never not have snow, regardless if it's 50 degrees or not. I'll have snow a month in advance if we have to. So time to up our game a little bit.
Any questions from members of the board? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One thing we would want to note, so when we were here before Whoopie Pie, Lyle had asked for money. And we were very, very impressed that I think it was discretionary funds supported that. So we would love to figure out how to do that. So I guess would I be contacting you, Mayor Mike? See if that's a possibility? Would I be, I don't know how to do this. This is weird.
I would contact the mayor, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the time, and I hope we see you all at Winterfest.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate all your efforts.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to address the board on matters not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to communications from the mayor.
We got to approve the minutes. Do we approve the minutes?
No, we didn't. Thank you. Let's approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from December 16th?
Second.
Are there any additions, deletions, changes, corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now the mayor.
Awesome. Thank you first to Come Alive Outside for coming. That was, it's great to have another Winterfest in line and to have some guaranteed snow for sledding will be awesome because that is one of the most fun events. So first I want to talk about the annual report. So you can see our new annual report is out. It's got a nice cover, looks fantastic, and you're not going to get a copy of it yet. Here's why. So we got the report in, and there are some errors and omissions in the report. We submitted some things to the printers that didn't make it in. Some of the printers work their spelling errors and things that need to be corrected. So we are going to have by Friday an updated digital copy on the city website, and then we are going to get them reprinted. So it'll be a little while longer, but if you want a paper copy between now and the time that we get them printed, please come into the clerk's office and we will get you taken care of. But just got to fix the problems before they get out there, so we want to make sure we get that taken care of. Any questions on that? Awesome. Looks good though. The inside's got to look. It's fine. Center Street RFP is out. So if you remember about 5 months ago, we had the board had approved us going out to RFP for the Center Street streetscape design up to and including the bid docs. That went out on Friday. We expect to get responses back here in the next few weeks. We'll be opening those responses at the Board of Finance meeting, and then we'll bring the results to the board for decision-making process. Part of the work we know is potentially going to be paid through TIF. The other part, we're going to be looking at a few other opportunities. One of those opportunities is something called the RAISE grant. This is a federal grant. This is the grant that Killington just got for $25 million. A few years before that, Burlington got a RAISE grant for $23 million. I believe it's up to almost $27 million now. Ed and I are going to be working on drafting that application prior to the next board meeting, and we'll hopefully have a draft for you by the next board meeting so you can see what that looks like. That could be a significant amount of money. Center Street itself wouldn't necessarily look to be 27 million, but with those opportunities, they like to see full applications. So we will be talking about the TOD work and the work down in Depot Park and over to the train station as well, and what can be included in that. So that'll be something that we'll be looking into and working on. Any questions on that? Awesome. Capital improvement plan is all but completed. We've filed the draft with the clerk's office. On the 21st, we will be holding a public hearing for the public to review the capital improvement plan with us, just like we just did with the TIF. We've got the agenda set so that on the 15th of January, we're having a committee meeting. We can have the discussion there. The board can vote on the capital improvement plan in the committee meeting, bring it to the board, and on the 21st, when we have that meeting, you'll be able to vote on the approving the capital improvement plan there as well. That also has some bond work that will be going with it. We'll discuss that in that meeting as well. Any questions on that? Awesome. Last one for me, quick night tonight. I was invited to the governor's inauguration on Thursday. I'll be sitting up in the gallery. I'm pretty excited about that. So if you need anything on Thursday, I will be out of the office, but Tyler will be around and available if you need. Great. Any questions? Awesome. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next up is consideration of special event permit requests. We have none. Moving on to reports and letters from department heads and officials. First up is Planning and Zoning Administrator Bove with the TIF resolution and district plan, and this is on pages 4 to 22 of your packet.
Thank you for having us tonight. I'd like to introduce Stephanie Clark from Wittenberg, who's been a driving force behind the TIF process that we've been going through to lead us to tonight. Before I turn it over to Stephanie, I just want to give out some thanks to get us where we are today. Some of the TIF working group members, there's Alderman Gillen, who's been part of it, helping lead the way. President Talbot's been part of the working group as well. Lyle, also part of the working group. Mayor Mike. Also, Attorney LaChance, who's not here, has been an integral part of that. So big thanks to her. To Katie, the assessor, who's also not here. Treasurer Markowski, Mary's been very helpful with doing some of the numbers. And Ted, who's also been super helpful pulling some of the infrastructure costs together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to walk us through the TIF application.
Great. And can we get the screen to sync? Is that synced? People in the audience.
There you go. Look at that.
Fabulous.
Just point.
And everyone can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm getting over laryngitis. I have two very small children who love to share everything except their energy. So I am here tonight to talk to you again because you saw me in not that long ago, October 21st. But for everybody else, I am Stephanie Clark. I'm with Wittenberg Real Estate Advisors. I have been consulting to the City of Rutland for a few years and building the economic development planning around this TIF district application. So I'm really your consultant, and as Ed mentioned, we've been working with this group, and we were here in October to present our TIF district plan for the first time, and then we had to take a little hiatus, and now we're back. And the only substantive change or any change to the presentation tonight is a slight change to the numbers after we did some tweaking, and we also changed and updated the next steps, kind of getting to Mary's question before about schedule. So tonight I'm going to go through, we're going to take, it's about 10 minutes, really important to take the time it takes to really explain TIF, tax increment financing, because it is a complicated subject. We like to go through it and to give it the credit it deserves to be for why we're here today, because it's an important milestone. So I'm going to go through why we're doing this, because this is tax increment financing is just a mechanism. It's just a tool to get us to a different stage in economic development. So really the reason we're here is for the goals, not for this simple mechanism itself. So I'll talk about what TIF is and talk about our plan that we put together, and then the timeline and why we're here, why you're here, and what we're asking for tonight before we close up. So I won't read them all to you, but the city goals are there for you to see. These are the goals that the working group and vetted by this, especially by the committee, had put forward as the most important reasons why we want to do this economic development. Why does the city want to start getting a little bit more in the driver's seat on economic development? So what TIF is really just an economic development tool. It's a financing mechanism that is a state-supported program, but it is not unique to Vermont. They are all over this country, TIF districts are, and there are several in the state already. But tax increment financing is a way to reduce barriers for private development, to encourage more private development and investment into your city, to really be able to grow your grand list. So the way that works is that infrastructure barriers are identified, and the city can invest in those and take out a bond to pay for that. But then, once that's been built, the private development comes in, and now you have new property value, new property taxes that go to pay down the debt on that infrastructure. So it funds itself in that way. Put another way, you have a base within that district. So it's not your whole city, it's a smaller district. And within that district, there's the original taxable value, which means that everything within the district today continues to have taxes go in to the different funds, the municipal general fund and the state education fund. And what basically all taxpayers should know, your taxes don't change unless you make an improvement on your property as you do today. You see more tax value, taxable value, you see more taxes. But it's where the money goes. It's where the taxes go after. So during the life of the TIF district, any new property value created, any new taxes coming off of that property value go toward paying down the debt. A portion go to pay down the debt. And afterward, the green section here is showing you that you have more taxable value than you did before. like when I say a life of a district, you have 10 years to incur the debt, which is why we have to time all this very carefully and why we've been very careful and intentional in our planning. From the time we get a district, which actually begins tonight, when the Board of Aldermen, if the Board of Aldermen approve the district, your TIF district is created as of the April 1 of this calendar year. And that means we have a 10-year clock to incur all the debt, do all the infrastructure projects we want to do. From the time of our first increment of debt, so let's say we don't do that for a couple more years, that starts a 20-year clock. And that 20-year clock is the amount of time we have to retain the increment. And the district is over when all the debt is repaid. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of time frames, but I just want to make sure that's clear. Again, one more way to put this is that you have the original taxable value. So in green, the state education fund is getting a certain amount of taxes. In the blue, the general fund is getting a certain amount of taxes today. In that middle column, you see that during the life of the TIF district, those green and blue blocks don't change. That's the consistent original taxable value. What changes is that anything new, that orange section, is going to go to paying down the debt, plus, because I said it's not an entirely, not all of the taxes go to the increment, a portion will then add to your education fund and general fund. And afterwards, you have a much bigger amount going to both of those funds. So you're growing your grand list and your increment. What I need to mention as I educate around TIF districts all the time is based on what we hear, we get a lot of fear around, well, I heard that TIF districts done in other parts of the country have failed. They've built a sewer pipe out to an interchange and the resulting, Lowe's or Walmart or Chipotle didn't come, and now we're stuck holding the bag. Vermont program does not allow that. The if you build it, they will come model is not applicable in Vermont, so we're protected in that way. The accounting issues you might have read about in the paper. There are checks and balances to support communities to not fall into those traps. It's not without any risk, but it's very heavily mitigated risk. The city also, by creating this district, is not obligated to use the district. If no project comes about, that's okay. You haven't lost anything. You've invested in your economic development effort, but you haven't invested any debt. You haven't incurred any debt. So the TIF creation process, because we use a portion of the new incremental education fund dollars, means that the state has to do a portion of the approval process, and they are also the overseers of the program. So the master TIF creation, which is what we're doing, the master TIF district, gets approved first by you, by the Board of Aldermen, and these are public meetings. And then VETA, Vermont Economic Progress Council, is the state entity that reviews this. So we'll be submitting our application pending tonight's approval. We'll be submitting that in 2 days. And that goes to the state for a review. Then you get your first project. So when a first project is at the door and ready to go, we have to create engineering plans, we have to do a development agreement with the partners, and that comes back to the board. So the board then sees the development agreement, has to vote on the development agreement. Then you have to vote on the actual application for the phase filing for that specific project. That also goes back to the state. And until all that's done, then we go to the public for a vote, a bond vote, just like you do for any other infrastructure bond. However, it's not going to add to the tax rate. It's going to be paid for by TIF. So that's where we are today. More on schedule coming up, but essentially why we're here tonight is to review and approve the TIF district plan, which is the nuts and bolts of the whole district and the application that goes into the state. It's comprised of 3 components: narrative, description, tables, the workbook that is several tabs and pages long, and maps. And this is a menu. This is not a roadmap. This is not an obligation. It just does a concept plan of how this tool could be used should the city choose to make these partnerships with the individual property owners. Here's a map of the entire city, and the reason I include this is because that small yellow section in the middle is the TIF district, and this is to show that it's really just a small portion of the city land area, although it's a slightly higher percentage of the property value, given that it's the downtown core. But it's a small percentage, and then if you zoom in, here's the boundaries of it. And the little blue dots that you can barely see here in the audience, but you can see online, show the locations of these conceptual projects that we've identified as possible infrastructure projects. Later down the road, I told you this is a 10-year district for incurring debt. In 9 years, I guarantee we are not doing every single one of those dots, and we might have found new dots. We'll have found new opportunities. So, the TIF district plan overview, this has not changed since you saw me in October, but essentially we identified 11 opportunities that would be made possible by 8 infrastructure investments, taking away utility issues, remediating brownfields, doing site prep for these sites, and we can double up. There's a reason it's not 8 and 8 or 11 and 11 is because some improvements to an area will make lots of properties unlock, in other words. So if you do, utility improvements on a whole section of street, maybe there's 2 projects that can come online now. And we've estimated that those 11 conceptual projects could yield 385 new housing units to come online in the next 7 years. Now that's an estimate, and that's conceptual based on kind of land areas and zoning capacities, but it does show the power of how many properties have the ability to be bigger than they are today, more utilized than they are today in our downtown core. So $20.6 million of infrastructure for those 8 projects could yield almost $60 million in increased property value. And that's a really good ROI for a community. Because I said not all the increment goes to the repayment of debt, there is a portion that goes to the general fund and a portion that goes to the education fund. So over the 20 years, the general fund is going to receive an additional $3 million that it is not getting today and would not likely get tomorrow, because without these investments in infrastructure, these projects aren't happening. And another $6.8 million to the education fund. So that brings us to our specific timeline. Today we're here to vote on the plan, and this would we also ask that you authorize the submission of the application to VEPC, and that will be signed off on by both the president and the mayor. And then we submit that, we meet with VEPC. There's a few meetings over the course of the next few months. And then overall, the timeline is that we'd like to be concurrently working on the first project, which is very likely to be the hotel project. And if we can continue working on that very diligently and in lockstep, we can bring back the first phase filing right after we get approval from VEPC for the district. So we get district approval, phase filing approval, which puts us on track to bring forward a special election in November, possibly. I'm not going to swear to that because that can move a little bit depending on how you warn the meeting and such, but in the fall, and then the city can incur its first debt next winter and be ready for construction in the spring for whatever infrastructure has been agreed upon. And we're not here to discuss those details tonight. We don't have those details. I'm not privy to those details yet, but we are talking about, how we can sequence this. What is being asked tonight of the board is to approve the TIF district plan, adopt the resolution that's in your packet, and to sign the application authorize the signature of the application to VEPC. But we are not asking for any incurrence of debt today. You're not authorizing any specific infrastructure improvement. You are just authorizing the establishment of the plan of the district so that we can take the next step. I bring it back to goals, just to really refresh our memory about why we're here. It's not to specifically use a tool. It is to get to more housing, more walkability, reduce blight. Immediate next step, we submit our application. I wanted to put this on the slide so that folks know VEPC will do their first visit here in person in Rutland, and we'll do a tour around Rutland. That's going to hopefully be February 24th if they schedule it the way we hope. And public will be welcome to attend that for anyone interested. Subsequently, there's 2 more meetings. Those are held in Montpelier. You can also participate virtually in those if you're interested. But concurrently, we're hoping to be working on this first project development at the same time. And that's everything.
Alderwoman Taddeo?
Thank you for your work on this project, and thank you also to the entire TIF working group for all of your extra hours. Outside of this, I will make a motion to approve the TIF district plan.
Suspend the rules?
I will make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to suspend the rules and take the matter up tonight. It's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I will make a motion to approve the TIF district plan, to approve the resolution establishing the district and circulate it for signature, and to authorize the submission of the application to the state, specifically to the Vermont Economic Progress Council.
Second.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Alderman McCann.
A question that came up, and I should have thought about this before, but so I think you said that the state sort of administers it. So if we approve it and if we get a project and we do the base filing and we get to where we've incurred the debt, does that all go through the state and Mary just kind of handles what extra money comes back at the top of what's paying back the debt service, or does the city treasurer end up doing some of that work as well?
City treasurer does some of that work.
Okay.
So there's an accounting process that the other districts have all, gone through. There's a lot of resources for her through VLCT, through other districts to get the accounting in line, because there is a different diversion of taxes that is way beyond my pay grade and probably too granular, but it does stay within the city. The city has to implement it. The administration, oversight, and accountability comes from the state.
Okay.
Any additional comments or questions? Alderwoman Davis.
Once we do our thing, it goes to the state, they have to approve.
Yeah.
Any reason they would not?
We haven't had them deny it yet. So typically, by the time we get to the process with Pepsi, they may make changes, let me put it that way, is that between now and when they approve it, they could make changes. They could ask for adjustments, and we could come back here and ask you to reapprove a plan that has made some adjustments. That happened in Killington, for example, but they don't deny. They absolutely could, but because we try to do it iteratively and cooperatively with them, they're there to help. They're not there to regulate and kind of decline.
All right, so the motion is to approve the TIF district plan as presented, circulate the resolution for signatures by the board, and authorize submission of the application to VEPSI. Seeing nothing further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Next up is Engineer Gillen with the Wastewater Engineering Services RFQ recommendation. You'll find this on pages 23 and 24.
Good evening. Last year, we issued an RFQ for wastewater engineering services, received 6 statements of qualifications. We reviewed them and ranked them, as you can see in the memo and on the attached spreadsheet. Basically, this is just a substitute for an RFP for individual projects. We did this about 5 years ago. That's what state funding agencies like. Every 5 years, you can go for an RFQ, rank the firms, and then initiate negotiations with any firm for a particular project. So I'm not asking for any money or requesting that we approve an agreement. We just want to start talking to firms.
I'll move to suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion to suspend the rules. It's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'll move to approve the selection of engineering consulting firms for wastewater engineering services as recommended below: Aldrich and Elliott, Hoyle and Tanner, Hazen and Sawyer.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Engineer Gillen's up again with a hazard mitigation grant, flood mitigation study on page 25.
It's about 2 to 3 months ago, we were notified of this hazard mitigation grant program. The state had several millions of dollars to issue towards projects that might provide flood relief, things like floodplain restorations or culvert upsizing. At least those were the primary ones that we were focused on. I submitted nearly, I want to say, 13 to 14 pre-applications. They review them, and then they rank them, and then invite you to submit a formal application, which is due in June. So they selected 3 of our projects. I outlined them in here. Main focus on the Clover Street area that routinely floods during high rain events. So I know that the Strongs Avenue culvert is undersized, mainly it's narrow. Along with, there's a floodplain restoration project that we highlighted during a phosphorus control plan that was done. That's just east of Route 7, again, right by the intersection of Clover Street. We also applied for funding on Muzzy Brook down towards the fairgrounds for floodplain restoration. In 2 of those applications, I made note of railroad culverts that I thought were undersized. I spoke to V-Trans, tried to encourage them to apply, didn't get much response. But oddly enough, during the pre-application phase, after they read them, they said, we might be able to get you funding to replace those culverts as well. So naturally, I got pretty excited. But what's lacking is a flood mitigation study where an engineer will look at the waterways in question, Moonbrook, Muzzy Brook, study it with respect to like the entire watershed, and then the certain projects in particular that if a culvert was upsized or if a floodplain was restored, would it reduce flooding and damages to nearby properties? We don't have that. So the grant administrator said, maybe you can just do like a 10,000-foot overview of the areas, try to do something fast and loose, so to speak, to just say, hey, we think this is going to make a positive impact. Maybe the consultant could recommend a more detailed study in which the grant would fund further study along with replacements of culverts and things like that. The issue is that the time frame was pretty compressed. Have a study done by April. It's January now. Grants due June. So the first thing that came to mind was a firm that we had worked with, SLR, who does a lot of this type of work. But they studied the Moonbrook corridor in particular when looking at the combination pond project. They did a dam breach analysis. So they've studied that whole corridor in terms of flooding with respect to the pond, but not with respect to upsizing a culvert or these projects that I've referenced. So I'm going to reuse my joke. I'm not asking for money, but I'd like to forego the traditional RFQ or RFP process and just try to go directly to them to see what the cost would be, the level of effort, and things like that.
Alderman McCann?
Motion to suspend the rules and take
Second.
it out tonight.
All right, we have a motion to suspend the rules. It's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'd make a motion to authorize the Public Works Commissioner to initiate contract negotiations with SLR Consulting for a flood mitigation study.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to authorize. It's been seconded. Alderwoman Davis.
So just a question, Ted. Estimated cost $50,000. That's what you anticipate the grant will cover that?
No, that's what I'm anticipating that this study would cost. I'm not sure if
So we're not, so do we have a source for the $50,000?
that's something that I'm working on.
Okay.
So if you guys did approve this, and then I went and got an engineering services agreement, I'd come back with a recommended funding source for us to consider.
All right, great. Thank you.
Any additional discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me. Any opposed? Motion passes. And then Engineer Gillen, once again, with a request to refer several items to the Public Works Committee.
So I didn't want to push my luck, so I'm just going to refer the next 2 topics to DPW Committee, Moonbrook Flow Restoration Plan, and the Phosphorus Control Plan Engineering Design Services.
I'll move to refer to the Public Works Committee.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to refer the Moonbrook Flow Restoration Plan and Phosphorus Control Plan Engineering Design Services to the Public Works Committee. It's been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. We're moving on to reports of standing committees. First up, it's Alderwoman Taddeo with the report from the December 12th meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee. This can be found on page 27 of your packet.
The topics were the development agreement and legal agreements for the Center Street Hotel. The date was Thursday, December 12th, 2024. Committee members present were myself, Alderwoman McClure, Alderwoman Davis, and Alderman McCann. Others present, Mayor Dunges, President Talbot, Alderman Barbagallo, Treasurer Mary Markowski, Alderman Gillum, Attorney LaChance, Elizabeth Coulis, Ed Bove, Lyle Jepson, Justin Belden, Kent Belden, Carly Perry, Assessor Langlois, and Bob Protovansky. The meeting was called to order at 5:31 p.m. The purpose of the meeting was to review the Rutland Downtown Hotel and Living Agreement Letter of Intent to enter into a development agreement. It was determined that to discuss the contract in open session would place the Beldens at risk during their contract negotiations. A motion was made to enter into executive session with the inclusion of the parties in the room, which passed 4-0. The CED committee entered executive session. The non-binding letter of intent was discussed in detail, and Elizabeth Coulis presented the contract line by line and answered many questions about the project, the TIF district, and the impact to the city. After 2 hours of intense discussion, Alderman McCann made a motion to exit executive session, which passed 4-0, and the committee opened the door. Alderman McCann made a motion to recommend the Board of Aldermen authorize the mayor to sign the Rutland Downtown Hotel and Living Agreement Letter of Intent to enter into a development agreement pending the suggested changes made during executive session and pending attorney review. This motion passed 4-0. I will not be moving this motion tonight because this topic has been referred to the committee of the whole, and it will be discussed further there. This meeting adjourned at 7:25 p.m.
Thank you very much. Next is Alderwoman Davis with a report from the December 18th meeting of the Public Safety Committee. This is on page 28.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee met December 18th. Members present were Alderman McClure, Taddeo Whitcomb, and Chairman Davis. Also present were President Talbot, Mayor Dunges, Chief Lovett, Chief Kilcullen, Tyler Dolan from Recreation, Commissioner Protovansky, Treasurer Markowski, and Alderman Barbagallo. The meeting began at 5:30 p.m. The topic were the equipment replacement funds. First was the discussion of the fire equipment fund, which generates approximately $175,000 off the tax rate. Chief Lovett was requesting an increase due to replacing the fire truck at $1.2 million. He is requesting an additional $50,000 to be generated into the fund. The committee agreed and the motion was made to change the rate generated from the fire equipment replacement fund from .0175 to .0225, and I so move. This will allow $225,000 to be generated yearly. And I'll move that motion.
All right, so we have a motion to change the rate generated in the fire equipment replacement fund from .0175 to .0225. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The next discussion was the police, DPW, and recreation currently split the equipment replacement fund. This fund generates $120,000. A police car alone currently is $85,000 fully equipped and are replaced every 3 years by charter. Police were allowed $57,000 and the rest were split between recreation and DPW. They do recycle their cars as appropriate to BCI, etc. The committee felt it was appropriate to establish a police equipment replacement fund based on the costs and the need. The cars can be ordered fully equipped and ready in approximately 6 months. The treasurer and the police chief felt that $180,000 generated yearly off the tax rate would allow them to purchase and not lease, avoid interest rates, and save taxpayer dollars. This will allow trade-ins to occur and supplement the fund as well. The motion was to approve the establishment of a new police fire equipment fund and generate .018 on the tax rate yearly, and I so move.
Second.
The impact of this new fund would be $27 a year on our tax bill.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the establishment of a new police fire equipment fund and to generate .01 on the annual tax rate. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? Alderman Gillum.
I just want to make a comment. I wasn't at the meeting, but I am very much in favor of this, and I think the taxpayers need to understand at home that are watching, this is a move to put money aside so much a year to build that fund up, so we are not bonding every time we turn around that we need trucks, vehicles, whatever. So it's a slow process to build the fund up to purchase these vehicles without bonding. And I think this is a wise move financially for the city.
And just to clarify, is it a police fire equipment fund or just police equipment fund?
The fire already exists,
Yeah.
and we just increased the dollar amount. This is an establishment of a new fund for police,
Okay, so the word fire is just in there errantly, we should remove it.
probably.
Yes, okay, just to make sure that we
Yeah,
got it
no,
correct.
this would be a new establishment for the police to generate .018 off the tax rate.
Very good. Any further discussion or debate? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The current equipment replacement fund will remain the same at $120,000. This will be split between Recreation and DPW. Both Tyler and Commissioner Protobianski felt that the 50-50 split was helpful to them and they would make it work. If unspent in 1 year, this is allowed to roll over. So if DPW, we could probably take some of the smaller equipment requests out of the budget and fund them under this, this line item. The impact on the tax rate as it exists now is $44.25 a year. That's for the existing fire and regular equipment fund. That will go to $78.75 yearly. But this is a significant savings for the taxpayers for not having to bond for fire equipment and not having to pay interest rates, et cetera, lease agreements to have to deal with police cars. Request that the city clerk sets the necessary hearings, which she has, for February 3rd. But I do have a motion Alderman Taddeo spoke of. There was discussion with the police chief. Why are we turning the equipment over every 3 years? Based on the city charter, and the discussion that the Chief Kilcullen felt that we needed to look at mileage rather than years. So I'd like to move to refer to charter and ordinance the question of the replacement for police vehicles to change the language from years to mileage, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to refer this issue to the Charter and Ordinance Committee. It's been seconded. Any discussion on the referral? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And the meeting adjourned at 6:10 PM.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Alderman McCann with the report from the December 19th meeting of the Charter and Ordinance Committee. This is on pages 29 and 30.
Thanks. The December 19th, 2024 Charter and Ordinance meeting was called to order at 5:30. Committee members in attendance were board members Barbara Gallo, Gilman, McCann, Savage, Taddeo, and Talbot. Others in attendance were board members McClure and Whitcomb, who attended virtually, City Attorney LaChance, who also attended virtually, Parks Director Dahlin, Legal Extern Alvarez Rios, and Stephen Box. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss competitive bid trigger amounts and the maximum penalty for violations of ordinances defined in the city charter, as well as the development of a short-term rental registration ordinance. Competitive bid trigger amounts are defined in subsection 9-17.3 requisitions, which currently requires that any purchase over $3,000, quote, shall be awarded upon bids, end quote. The mayor noted this is unrealistically restrictive given the rising costs of basic services and requested that the board consider raising the trigger amount. During the meeting, Parks Director Dahlin shared that the $3,000 threshold posed administrative challenges for the Recreation Department, particularly in purchasing materials and supplies. Attorney LaChance and a memo from Mayor Dunges proposed solutions to address this issue. Options included either setting a higher limit in the charter or referencing a limit in the city's purchasing policy, allowing greater flexibility for future adjustments. Mayor Dunges also suggested retaining a secondary lower limit requiring Board of Finance review. The group discussed the merits and logistics of these approaches. Board Member Taddeo made a motion to amend subsection 9-17.3 pending attorney review to remove reference to a specific dollar limit and instead identified that the bid trigger dollar amount would be identified in the city's purchasing policy. It was noted that the attorney review for this and related motions would include coordination with the city treasurer. The motion passed 5-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to amend subsection 9-17.3. It's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Board Member Taddeo made a related motion to update the city's purchasing policy pending the previously mentioned charter change and attorney review to require a competitive bid process for purchases in excess of $10,000. The motion passed 5-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to update the city's purchasing policy. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Board Member Taddeo made an additional related motion to refer to Board of Finance adjusting the purchasing policy to include requirement for Board of Finance involvement of anything over $5,000. The motion passed 5-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have another motion to adjust the purchasing policy. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? Alderman McCann?
Just to clarify, it's referring it to Board of Finance to consider
Sorry.
what that amount would be.
To refer to Board of Finance. Any discussion or debate on the referral? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next topic. So subsection 9-5.3, violation of ordinances, currently states, quote, "The Board of Aldermen may provide penalties for the violation of any ordinance, regulation, or bylaw. In no case shall the penalty exceed imprisonment for 1 year or a fine of $500 or both per violation." Mayor Dunges suggested this maximum fine may no longer reflect the severity of certain violations and asked the board to consider raising it. Attorney LaChance reviewed state statutes and noted that 24 VSA 1974A sets a maximum fine of $800, which serves as the upper limit for municipal fines for civil ordinance violations, while 24 VSA 1974 aligns with subsection 9-5.3 on the maximum prison sentence for criminal ordinance violations. Discussion included how these state statutes are updated and the potential benefits of aligning Rutland City penalties with state maximums. Board Member Taddeo made a motion to amend subsection 9-5.3 pending attorney review to remove reference to specific fine or imprisonment maximums and instead tier to the associated maximums in 24 VSA 1974 and 1974A. The motion passed 5-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to remove the specific fine or imprisonment maximums and instead tether them to state statute maximums. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, lastly, we talked short-term rental registration. City Attorney LaChance and former Planning and Zoning Administrator Shanisti, with support from legal extern Alvarez Rios and external attorney Matt Bloomer, drafted a short-term rental ordinance to address identified tracking and management needs in Rutland City. Board Member McCann received an initial draft in June, which underwent further revisions by LaChance, Alvarez Rios, and Bloomer before a more refined version was shared with McCann in late November. In December, this updated draft was distributed to the Charter and Ordinance Committee, the full board, and several members of the public who had shown particular interest. McCann also launched a survey to gather input on ordinance priorities and shared preliminary results with the same stakeholders. The committee discussion began with a review of the draft ordinance. Key topics included defining terms like guest and tenant consistently, clarifying when certificates of occupancy are required, specifying information to be posted within rentals, enforcing parking controls, and coordinating with zoning updates. Board Member McCann invited further feedback from board members and city staff covering additional concerns such as ensuring registrants are in good standing with the city, collecting fees and taxes, quarterly reporting requirements, conditions for reinstating revoked registrations, and potential triggers for permanent bans. Stephen Box contributed extensively, offering insights and suggestions from his experience in the short-term rental industry. After more than 30 minutes of discussion, Board Member McCann noted the time and stated that the issue would remain in committee for further development. Before adjourning, he invited any final pressing concerns. Stephen Box then spent 20 minutes voicing a series of complaints about the process. He criticized the city for insufficient public participation in drafting the ordinance, the use of other communities' ordinances as models, and the perceived demonization of short-term rentals. He argued the process was still too complicated for short-term rental operators and suggested a 30-minute responder training program. Additionally, he objected to the limited time provided for reviewing the draft ordinance and the decision to warn the discussion topic without dedicating extended time for detailed deliberation. Box also proposed explicitly involving industry advocates in drafting the ordinance and incorrectly claimed board members collaborated on the draft based on comments in the document, which were actually from city staff and external legal advisors. Finally, he requested an ad hoc committee to further develop the ordinance, prompting a discussion about how board or committee members might participate without violating open meeting laws. Ultimately, while the city attorney was given a few items that could be addressed right away, there was a lot more discussion on the topic anticipated. No action was taken on the item, and it will remain in committee. The meeting was adjourned at 7:04 p.m.
Thank you. Excuse me. Moving on to reports of select committees, we have none. Reports of representatives, we have none. Petitions, letters, miscellaneous communications, we have none. Board of Control Commissioners, we have nothing on the agenda. Board of Cannabis Commissioners, we have nothing on the agenda. Unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Seeing none, miscellaneous motions, resolutions, and new business. We do have an executive session related to a labor relations agreement. I'll read the first motion, and if someone would move it, a motion to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the negotiation of a labor relations agreement would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage because the discussion will divulge the board's position on the agreement provisions to be negotiated.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And a motion to enter into executive session with the inclusion of the mayor and who else? The police chief, Commander Whitehead, the HR director, the treasurer, and the members of the police commission that are present. Is that correct? All right. Did you get that? Oh. To discuss the labor relations agreement as allowed under Title I, Section 313A1B.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.